on to our next speaker, a renowned musician, Brian Enoch.
In 1994, before the war, before the Labour Party had taken power, before Tony Blair was even leader of the Labour Party, I met him and had dinner with him at the House of Commons. He invited me to dinner, because Labour was at that time embarked on a sort of cool Britannia thing where they were sucking up to B-grade pop stars like me in an attempt to look cool. Sorry? May have tried. And I had dinner with him. I was rather puzzled why he wanted to have dinner with me. He wanted to talk to me about the internet, apparently, which was quite a new thing at the time. And we had a discussion, and at some point the idea of good and evil came up. He brought that idea up. And I said, I'm afraid I don't really think things are like that. I don't really believe that things separate into good and evil as though these are forces that float around in the world and possess people, like devils possess people. And he said to me, "You mean you don't believe in good and evil?" And that was when I realized he was a very simple man. Simple, in a simple sort of religious way, a Manichaean idea that the universe really consisted of this fight that was going on. And he was, of course, very sure that he was on the good side of that fight. And ever after that, whenever I saw him speaking, I remembered this conversation and I thought, he's dividing the world up and he's very sure that he's on the right side of it. So, what I would like to caution against is that we make the same mistake. He saw the world in very simple terms of good and evil, good people and bad people. I think it would be a mistake if we do the same thing. So although I'm the first to join in the accusations of Blair as being stupid, careless, proud, arrogant, overconfident, etc., etc., I don't want to pin everything onto him. He was part of a whole network of thinking, and a particularly subversive kind of thinking that was coming out of America, in particular out of the neocons. It ensnared a lot of English minds as well. And these were people who essentially did believe that same idea, that the world divided into good and evil. Saddam Hussein was one of the evil, and therefore he had to be got rid of. And this is the kind of thought that doesn't really have any consequences beyond the act itself. We have to kill the bad people. Well, if you really thought that it was as simple as that they were the evil, you could just eradicate them, then that would be the right course of action. But it clearly isn't the right course of action. Things don't divide up as simply as that. People are produced by their circumstances and so on and so on, all the things that we kind of know. But that sort of simplicity that expressed itself in this strange mixture of hubris, the sight of those two guys, Bush and Blair, walking together almost arm in arm like a couple of cowboys, was so sickening, I thought, that they really thought they were like, in the Wild West or something like that. And there's that combination of the hubris of, we've got the biggest armies in the world, this won't be a problem for us, we can just get rid of those bad people. No problem at all. And then the paranoia that accompanies that, oh fuck, everybody's after us. That produces some very, very bad action. We don't really need either of those sides of the spectrum, either hubris or paranoia, to navigate the future. Just before the war started, in September I think, before, the government produced one of its awful dossiers to justify the war. And I wrote to Jack Storr and got a copy of it. I've still got it with his little signature on it, delivering it to me. Any citizen could get a copy of that, and probably can at the Chilcot report, I guess. We paid for it after all, so they ought to be free. Anyway, they sent me one, and I went through it. It was very long, and it was extremely detailed. It had exact sort of map references for where these biological weapons centres were supposed to be, and where these armaments were supposed to be hidden. And of course, it was all double Dutch to me, because I don't know Iraq at all, I've never been there. So I decided to find the telephone numbers of some weapons inspectors. And I managed in an afternoon to find two of them. I phoned them up and I said, I've got this report, can you help validate any of it for me? So I would read a bit out of it, so I don't know anything about that part. And I'd read another bit, you know, latitude, blah, blah, such as that belongs to. The guy would say, yeah, that's a bloody sheep farm. I've been there, I was there 4 weeks ago. There's 4 shepherds and lots of sheep. There's no biological weapons there. So in an afternoon, I was able to invalidate enough of that report to be convinced that it was just very sloppy intelligence. And ever since then, I thought, why didn't any journalist do that? It's not my fucking job to go invalidate a report. I've got records. But even worse, why didn't a single politician do it? Why did almost the whole of the Conservative Party, who really took us to that war actually, Blair and the Conservatives were the responsible for taking us into the war, not the Labour Party. I'm glad to say that 149 of them or so didn't vote for it. Okay, give me some faith in humanity. Well, the reason they all did it is partly because we have a media establishment that thrives on good stories. And it is so pitiful now. You know, the whole Brexit disaster, whether you believe leave or remain, I don't care. But the whole marketing of that campaign was so disgraceful. And I cannot understand how we can tolerate in a democracy where the quality of information is the single most important thing. How we can tolerate papers that just print sheer propaganda on their front pages. I made a collage a few weeks ago of front pages of the Daily Express, that fine organ. And I took front pages from the last 2 years, and there were 60 front pages to do with migrants. What Trump is selling, what Farage is selling, what that idiot Boris Johnson is selling, is some stupid idea that we just have to do this and everything will be all right. Just get those migrants out and it will all be fine. Just get rid of that Saddam Hussein, it will all be fine. Just don't let's fall for this. The future is very complicated. It isn't going to be solved by simple actions like that. But one of the things that will help is getting some kind of press established that isn't feeding the shit we've been reading for the last 20 years or so. So I'm just going to talk about Trump for a minute, because I think Trump is the perfect example of the creation of modern media. He's so vacuously colourful that the American television cannot resist him. Everything he says, the more stupid the better, because he gets loads of airtime. So, you know, somebody pointed out recently that Trump had, I don't know what the factor was, something like 58 times the amount of airtime of Bernie Sanders. Because Bernie Sanders isn't telegenic. Bernie Sanders is a serious guy who thinks, like Jeremy Corbyn. Who the fuck wants to watch that? So Trump gets all the effect, and then surprise, surprise, everyone's talking about Trump, including me, as it happens at this moment. But the only thing he's selling is a false simplicity. That's what all these demagogues do. They sell a false reassurance. What they do is, you know, as happened with Brexit here, they take the anger of working people at their ever-deteriorating condition, and they point to somewhere. They say, we know you are having a bad time. Do you know what the problem is? It's those immigrants taking your jobs. Well, it's too easy, that trick. We really mustn't keep falling for it. And one minute. I thought it said, I am. So, yeah, I'm sorry, I went on too long. That's all I have to say, really. Thank you very much.